Hello, I'm Ben Hayday, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Lord Baker today after his talk with the University of Warwick Conservative Association. Lord Baker was the former Conservative Party chairman, former Education Secretary and a former Home Secretary, and is now in the House of Lords, so thank you very much for joining me.
Well, nice to be here.
Let's kick it off. As I've said, you've been in the House of Commons, you've been in the House of Lords. Which did you enjoy most?
Oh, undoubtedly the House of Commons, because that's where the real power is. The House of Commons, the House of Lords is quite different. One of the reassuring things about life in the House of Lords is you soon get to believe in life after death. Because if they're long enough, all your former colleagues who in the House of Commons come to join the House of Lords. That's what has an important function. It's a very good revising chamber, and we do that on a grand scale now. We pass many more amendments of the bills than the House of Commons do, because they guillotine them all and send them up to us with maybe 30 pages unread. But power is in the House of Commons. And what politicians all seek to do is to get known in the famous first hour of 2:30 to 4 o'clock on the floor of the House of Commons at question time. And you have to establish a reputation in the House in those hours.
Brilliant, thank you. And so, turning to your time as the Education Secretary, you introduced the Education Reform Act, which is still known as the biggest change to education policy since 1944. Is there anything you think you missed, or anything you'd like to have added if you had your time again?
I always regretted that I did not extend the teaching day by one lesson. But I couldn't do that, because one of the things I had to do when I first became Education Secretary was to settle a teacher's strike. And part of the settlement of that was to lay down the number of hours that a teacher would spend during the course of a year. That was approved by the union. And if one was going to add an extra lesson of 40 minutes or so, you'd have to reopen the whole of that discussion again. I just was not prepared to do it because we were making so many more important changes. And I regret that. But I don't regret my time at all. I was very lucky that I was allowed to bring in such big changes, like the national curriculum, that was well needed, like giving schools the responsibility for their budgets. And they loved that, but many people said, you can't trust head teachers to control lots of money, they don't understand how it goes. But we did, and now head teachers in secondary and primary schools have to control their own budget, and it works. That gives them a big deal of independence and confidence, which is important. And of course I did introduce schools for the first time not run by local authorities, so technology colleges and grant-maintained schools, and that was a tremendous breakthrough. And what's very interesting, when I was appointed by Margaret Thatcher in 1986, I went to see her for the first time, I thought she'd give me a list of things that she wanted done. But not at all. She said, look, go away and think all about it and come forward with your proposal in 4 weeks' time.
So were most of the policies coming from you or from civil servants?
A lot came from me, obviously. For example, I recognised there was a need for a national curriculum. I was very keen to get schools independent of local authorities to break free, because I wanted to energise them at the local level. I also wanted to give them the responsibility of running their own affairs. I did manage to do all of that. There were lots of changes. We made FE colleges free from local authorities, for example. Polytechnics were given a much greater status. I was the last Education Secretary to defend the difference between polytechnics and universities.
And so you've referenced the national curriculum. How do you feel about the trajectory that it's taken recently and just more generally since you left the Department for Education?
I don't really agree with the policy of the government at the moment, what's called EBAC and Progress 8, because that is directing the whole of the school right across the country into a quite narrow academic number of subjects. And as a result, what is happening is that all technical subjects and creative subjects like art, music and drama and dance are being squeezed out of ordinary schools. And I don't think you're getting the rounded education which I think you ought to have. So I don't approve of all of that, but that is the policy, and so that's one of the reasons why I've been establishing the technical colleges, because I think they're needed in the country.
So let's turn our attention to the higher education front. Across the country at the moment, the UCU have workers striking, including at the University of Warwick. Do you sympathise with these strikers?
Not at all. I think that is disgraceful what they're doing. What they're trying to do is to use their power, particularly at examination time, in order to secure for themselves a form of pension which most of the rest of the country can no longer afford. That's the position. And I think they're doing it very, very irresponsibly. They could be possibly damaging the chances of many of their students. I think it's highly, highly irresponsible and wrong.
So some reports suggest that the average academic will be £200,000 worse off in their retirement. This is something they've been promised as part of their current pension contract. So do you think changing it gives them any sympathy?
Well, I think the present contracts that they have at the moment are based upon final salaries and things of that sort. And is now generally accepted in the private sector, for example, that can no longer be afforded unless the beneficiaries pay a much higher contribution themselves, much more than their 7 or 8%, so more like 12 or 15%. Because what they're wanting are a form of pension which simply can't be afforded without more money put into while they're working.
And do you think that there is a place for those types of pensions at all in the higher education sector, or is it just
no,
that
I think there's no place for final salary pensions in the whole of society today.
It's very interesting. We have, you've obviously been speaking today at the Conservative Association at Warwick. Jacob Rees-Mogg attended last week, but when Rees-Mogg attended the University of West of England a few months ago, he was attacked. Did you feel safe coming to the university?
I'm totally safe. I don't think that I'm so attackable as Jacob. And I wasn't worried at all. But the great thing is, you want to feel completely free in a university to say what you want. And I think some of the tendency is to have a sort of censorship today against certain speakers, excluding certain speakers, whatever they may be, is fundamentally wrong. A university must be the very last place where anybody can say what they want to say without being threatened.
Warwick University and Warwick Students' Union are graded by the government as being poor for freedom of speech, yet they have never no platform to speak at. Do you think that this is just a few isolated examples blown out of proportion?
Well, I don't know the circumstances,
no,
I can't possibly talk about it, but I'm disappointed that they are, because Warwick University has a very high reputation as a university. It's one of the great successes of our country. It advanced more than any other university since 1945.
So nationally, do you think freedom of speech in universities is a problem, or is it just a few isolated examples?
I think it becomes a problem if the students don't themselves object to it. If they feel in their own universities that there is being unfair discrimination, people being forbidden from speaking about their views, they should protest very strongly about that.
Thank you very much for your time. This was Lord Baker for Raw 12:51 AM.